Hey everybody, welcome back to the third video in my series of my first solo playthrough The Outer Planets, a Leaving Earth expansion by Joseph Fatula. I went through, just to update you, it's been about a month or two since I was able to last get to this game, and I had to rewatch both of my first two videos and make sure that I knew what the game state was. I left it set up. I'm out here. It's kind of nice. The game's just the way I left it. I had a feeling like I'd maybe made a couple of mistakes. I wanted to just make sure that I had the game state correct before I started my last push here to try and win this thing. So just to recap, I'm going to be starting in 1973. I have 5 spacecraft on the board, although they are not very far from Earth. One is at interplanetary transfer. It's the what I call the capsule token. That has a single ion thruster with a Galileo probe and a one-time token on it. The token that I call the capsule, that kind of looks like the lunar lander, is in Earth orbit and it's 5 supplies. The one that I call the satellite is also in Earth orbit. It has a damaged ion thruster and 2 Juno rockets. And then the one that I call the wheel, the new token that came with the expansion, is a single Atlas rocket in lunar orbit, and then another satellite that looks like it has a solar array deployed that's kind of in the shape of a T. I have a single probe, and that's in lunar orbit. The reason that that's in lunar orbit instead of crashed on the moon with some damaged components is that I incorrectly in 1960 moved that probe from lunar orbit to the moon without any thrust to get it there, and that is actually a difficulty 2 maneuver, so I should not have been able to land that probe on the moon, nor done the subsequent landing attempts to try to rescue it because it wasn't there. So I have 3 outcome cards on my landing advancement. I have 3 outcome cards on my life support advancement. Neither of those have officially been tested. And then I have the Juno, Atlas, Saturn, and Io thruster advancements all fully tested, along with the Rendezvous and the Survey advancement also fully tested. I have some spare components that I've purchased that are not on the board, and those are 5 Juno rockets, a single Atlas rocket, a single ion thruster, which was in Earth orbit damaged, that would have returned to Earth at the end of the year and been repaired for free. 2 supplies and 2 astronauts. I have a pilot, John Glenn, and I have a medic, Wally Schirra. So that's what I'm working with. It's 1973, and I've only accomplished the lunar survey mission for 4 points. When I was looking at the state of the board here, I need to accomplish all of the inner planets missions, which is a lunar sample return, what I've been fixated on in my last video, trying to get that sample back from the moon and just failing miserably. That will be worth 10 points. And then if I can get a lander to Ceres, that's another 8 points. And a Ceres sample return is another 14 for a total of 36 points. Based on all the mission points on the board here, I actually need 38 to win. So I need to pick up 2 more points somewhere. I really sat down and did a lot of pre-mission planning. I filled out the little mission planner cards that came with the new expansion, which are very nice. And I just had to stop gunslinging this in my head and start to do a little planning and write some things down and just do a little analysis if I'm going to actually try to win this game and demonstrate what you can do in the outer planets. Because right now I still haven't really left Earth or the moon. We're just stuck right here in our own backyard, and we want to get out there and see and do some stuff. And we've only got till 1986 to do it. So we don't have a heck of a lot of time left to try to get some interesting things done. So my strategy here is, even though I want to finish those interplanetary missions, I don't want to do them right now because the calendar and the alignment of the planets is going to be really important. And if I wait too long, I'm not going to be able to get out there and do what I need to do. So my first idea is that this capsule here at Interplanetary Transfer, a Galileo probe. So, and I'm also using an ion thruster. And one of the nice things about ion thrusters is that you can optionally have them take more time. So you can get right to where you need to be precisely when you need to be there by just adding additional time tokens. So if we work backwards, one of the things we're going to want to do is end up and try to survey Uranus and Neptune out here, the very furthest possible planets, because those don't have any associated additional mission cards with them. So as is, if I could pick up either Uranus or Neptune, those would be more than enough for the 2 points I need without revealing any additional mission cards. If you look at the Jupiter flyby location, when we get ready to go from there to the Saturn flyby, we have to first encounter the Jupiter hazards, which is what the little red circle before the time tokens means. Now, Jupiter is unexplored, and the question is can I flip over Jupiter to discover what the hazard is and face that hazard before I move on to Saturn without actually revealing the Jupiter location and then having to reveal a Jupiter mission. I'm trying to avoid Jupiter because of just the massive gravity that is required to deal with Jupiter. If we have to get into Jupiter orbit from the Jupiter flyby, that's a difficulty 10 maneuver. It's only a difficulty 3 with aerobraking, but that was where I'd made another mistake in my previous video. At the end of 1972, I mistakenly thought I had $10 million left to spend. I'd discarded a major failure from my ion thruster without paying for it. So I should have spent that 10 million on removing the major failure, but I discarded the outcome card and forgot to pay for discarding it. Actually, it would have only cost $5 million. So at the end of 1972, I mistakenly thought I had an extra $10 million. I actually only had $5 million. I discarded a major failure outcome card for my ion thrusters, and I forgot to pay for discarding it, and it's $5 million to discard a failure card. So I mistakenly thought I had $10 million, and then I made another mistake by buying the aerobrake advancement, which actually requires re-entry. I caught that in editing and replaced it with the re-entry advancement. I still didn't have enough money to pay for that re-entry advancement. So for the game state, I've removed the re-entry advancement, and I used 5 of my remaining 10 million to remove the failure card for the ion thruster, and then I'm just going to go ahead and lose that last 5 million. So I think we're about ready to start. So it is the start of 1973. I have my $25 million budget. I've explained the game state. I've explained a little bit of my strategy of what I want to get going on here. I've planned out my series mission, and it looks like that is going to cost $71 million, which is a full 3 years of funding of just buying parts. After that, it's going to take at least 2 years to get there and 2 years to get back. So that's 7 years of just the series sample return. So if we back up from 1986, we need to leave around 1980. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. So 1980 is when we need to leave to accomplish the series missions, and that's if everything goes perfect without any issues. We may want to try to leave earlier than that, but I want to try to focus on these outer missions first. So series is there, and I also planned for the lunar sample return. I need to deliver a Juno rocket to the surface of the moon along with the landing the probe. And then I can leave the probe on the surface of the moon and boost the moon sample back to lunar orbit and then use an atlas to get back to Earth orbit. So I consider the moon, even though I've struggled with it in the second video of the series, I consider the moon to be pretty easy. There's no time tokens involved. We'll try to pick that one up at the end there. So I am going to focus in the beginning on the outer planets missions. And because I'm not sure about Jupiter, I'm going to plan on trying to get my missions done at Jupiter. So Jupiter, I certainly don't want to do the survey of the entire system because each of those moons is going to reveal another mission. So I just want to survey Jupiter. That'll pick up 5 points. And if I get lucky, the mission card I reveal might just be to survey it with a Galileo. So I'm going to bring a Galileo probe with me. I know I want to bring that. If there should be a Jupiter sample return type mission, I'm going to want a scientist with me because I don't know if I'll have enough rockets in time to get a sample back by the end of the game. And the nice thing about the scientist, which is a new type of astronaut in this expansion, is that the astronaut can complete the sample return missions from anywhere. So if we draw a sample return on Jupiter, we can complete that mission right there at Jupiter. There's some other cards, some other components like the Explorer component that we can bring with us in case we need a special mission payload to complete a particular scientific mission at Jupiter. We don't really know what we're facing, but we know we probably don't have enough time left in the game to go to Jupiter, discover what we need to do, and then bring a separate flight there. So with that in mind, we know we need a scientist astronaut. So let's just pick one of them up for $5 million. The two names that I recognize are Stony Musgrave and Sally Ride, and I don't have any girl astronauts yet, so I'm going to take Sally. She's $5 million. She's a scientist, and her special ability, like I said, is to complete sample return missions. The next choice we have is how many astronauts to send. We don't know what the effects of suborbital flight or solar radiation are on astronauts. So now I can send Wally Schirra as a medic who can heal an incapacitated astronaut, although he has to survive. If I look at the Eagle capsule, each astronaut needs a seat on the spacecraft, and the Eagle has the lowest mass that's going to give us 2 seats, but it will burn up in the atmosphere. And if we need to get into Jupiter orbit, we're going to need to do an aerobraking and reentry. And I imagine that that requires a heat shield on the space capsule. So now the mass is going to go up on the capsule, and we can either bring one astronaut, just bring our scientist and hope for the best, or take the Apollo, which actually has 3 seats. And if we take the Apollo capsule, that's going to give us room for one more astronaut. I'm tempted to put another medic in that seat just to increase our chances of our scientists surviving. So the Apollo capsule costs $4 million. I'm going to pay for everything as I get it here so I don't get off track. And then I'm going to use $5 million to pick up another medic astronaut. And I think I'm going to take Pavel Popovich. So there's my 3 astronauts that are going to be riding in the Apollo capsule. And I have $11 million left. I'm going to go ahead and buy the re-entry advancement because that's a prerequisite for aerobraking. That's going to get 3 outcome cards on it. I've got a lot of tech here to test still. And my 1 million left, I'm going to pick up 1 supply, and I've spent my entire budget for 1973, so let's move on to 1974. So one last thing we need to do at the end of 1973, now that we've spent all our money, is we need to remove our time token off of our capsule. When your spacecraft ends a turn, and remember you can take as many turns as you want in a year, but when a spacecraft ends a turn with no time token on it, it's lost if there's an automatic maneuver. And our little capsule out there at the interplanet transfer location would basically just be lost into some kind of very erratic orbit around the sun where it just that's it for it and we can't use it. But it's the end of our turns and it still has a time token on it. But now that all of our turns are over, you have the year-end accounting, and that's to remove 1 time token. So it's not lost because that's after all of our turns. And now we'll go to 1974. So at the start of 1974, the first thing we want to do is move our capsule because if we do end this turn and that capsule has no time tokens on it, it will be lost. We want to move from interplanetary transfer to Venus flyby, which is a difficulty 2 maneuver We're going to put time tokens on it and face solar radiation. Now what we want to make sure is that when we get to the Venus flyby location, we want it to be a year that we can get to Jupiter, that Jupiter and Venus are aligned. And if you look at the calendar at 1975, that's not the case. So we want to add an optional time token to our trip to make sure that we take at least 2 years. We don't want to get to Venus flyby until 1976 when it's aligned with Jupiter and we can get to Jupiter. The other thing to see is if we actually need to add that additional time token or if our single ion thruster is going to be so slow that it's going to take us 2 years anyway. The mass of our spacecraft is 3. Our Galileo probe is 2 and the ion thruster is 1. So a mass of 3 against a difficulty 2 maneuver requires 6 thrust, and our ion thruster only produces 5 a year. So that is going to take us 2 years, which is going to work out just perfect because it's going to get us there in 76 when we're lined up with Jupiter. And the other thing we have to face now is radiation hazard. So we can reveal the solar radiation finally. And it says radiation level 2. Roll a die per astronaut, and you're going to roll 2 times the time or less, otherwise they're sick. Depending on the amount of time we take when our astronauts head out there, that may be difficult. So I'm glad that we made the decision to get 2 medics. Now, another thing we can do to try to mitigate the risk on that is to ditch the Apollo capsule for the Aldrin capsule. So another option to deal with the solar radiation level, which is at a 2, would be to get the Aldrin capsule, which is more heavily shielded. It actually has the same amount of mass. It can seat 8 astronauts, but it doesn't have heat shields, so again, it would burn up if we were to do any maneuvers in Jupiter. So I don't think I'm going to go the Aldrin route. I think I'm going to go the 2 medic route in trying to deal with radiation. For example, when we go from inner planets to Venus flyby, it's only a 1, so we have to roll 2 or less on an 8-sided dice, and I think we'd be all right. We'll give it a try. Same for Jupiter flyby, it's only 1. Yeah, I think we'll go the 2 medic route. And since our current spacecraft we've been looking at doesn't have any astronauts, the solar radiation doesn't actually affect our spacecraft itself in the inner solar system. In the outer planets, it could, depending on the different location. So we are moving to Venus flyby. In order to get there, we need to successfully test our ion thruster, and actually the ion thruster advancement has no outcome cards on it, so it's an automatic success. So that takes care of our first turn. Now we have some more money to spend. And if we start to look at the mass, what we want to do here, let's buy our Galileo probe. This has a cost of $5 million. And we wanted an Explorer payload. That's got a cost of $3 million. And just this mass alone here, the astronauts of course don't have any mass. They do need a seat. So the Apollo capsule is going to have a mass of 3. Our Galileo probe has a mass of 2, and the Explorer payload has a mass of 1. So we've got a mass of 6 right off the bat. And if we look at the amount of time it's going to take to get to Jupiter, at a minimum, it's 1 year to inner planets, it's 1 year to Venus flyby, and then it's 1 year to Jupiter flyby. So we need at least 3 years worth of food. We have those 3 supplies right here. But now our mass is 9. That's a lot of weight to get going. Interplanetary transfer is a difficulty 3 maneuver. So that's going to be 30 thrust at a minimum. Venus flyby is 2, Jupiter flyby is only 1. So we're going to need, if you look at the difficulty 3 to get to interplanetary transfer, a Soyuz actually could do that. But then we have additional thrust requirements to get to Venus flyby and again to get into Jupiter flyby. And we're going to really have some thrust requirements again if we need to get into Jupiter orbit. So the easiest reusable thrust we could use is an ion thruster. The problem is that one of them is going to take 6 years just to get to interplanetary transfer because that difficulty 3 maneuver times the mass of basically 10 is 30. 30 divided by 5, the 5 thrust the ion thruster provides is 6 years. Um, and there'll be additional components after that. So we're going to have to take multiple ion thrusters if we want to get up there. And we're going to have to boost them as well. So we have one ion thruster. There's a curve that's going to calculate the added mass versus the additional thrust we get. And there'll be an optimal spot there where we can add ion thrusters but still stay under the mass before we get bumped up, and it's a law of diminishing returns. So if it's 10, 11, and one more would be 33, two more be 36. So yeah, shoot, we might want to try to get like 4 of them on there. That's $40 million. That's a lot of money. And we have other advancements we need to buy too. And our money's starting to get into that weird situation here where if I spend 10 million, which I'm going to do on the aero braking advancement, and that gets 3 outcome cards as well. Now I have 7 million left. I know I'm going to need some additional Atlas rockets, so I'm going to spend 5 million on another Atlas. That'll be used in the lunar mission, and then I have 2 million left that I'll just go ahead and pick up 2 more supplies. And that's going to put us at the end of 1974. So we'll take a time token off and move to the next year. All right, 1975. We are going to definitely need some Saturn rockets to get a lot of this stuff up here. And the real bummer here is the Saturn rocket's $15 million. We know we're going to need several two-stagers just to get us all of these missions going. So there's one, and I have 10 million left. I know I need Atlases, so I'm going to buy 2 more Atlas. Well, no. You know what else I need? I've done the math on the series returns. I think it's the series. Yeah, the series is going to take a lot of Soyuz rockets. So I'm going to spend this 10 million on the Soyuz advancement. And now I have really got a lot of untested technology on the board here. And that makes me really nervous. Aero braking, Soyuz, re-entry, landing, life support are all completely untested. That's my money for 1975 though. So we will remove a time token, advance it to 1976, and get $25 million. Okay, 1976 is a slingshot year. Our craft is at the Venus flyby location, and it needs to complete a maneuver or it's going to be lost. So we are going to Jupiter flyby. This is not the craft with anything on it but the Galileo. So I am going to go ahead and survey Jupiter and see what we get. So when I get there, Jupiter flyby costs at least 1 time token, and we've got the radiation hazard, which doesn't apply because we don't have astronauts. The mass of our ship is 3, the difficulty of the maneuver is 1. We only need 3 thrust. That's awesome. All that mass of Venus is flinging us out to Jupiter. Next year when we get there, we'll go ahead and survey and see what we're in store for. And that'll let us maybe take less mass when we get that other ship launched. Maybe we can test some stuff along the way. We'll see how it goes. What do we need? You know, it wouldn't be a bad idea to test fire some Soyuz rockets. So a Soyuz rocket is 8 million. We could spend 16 million and have 9 left, which isn't enough to discard a success. Again, the math in this game is so tight, it's really interesting. That use it or lose it on the budget makes it very interesting. We could test one and then see what we have left over. The other thing we can do is if we buy this Soyuz rocket for 8 million, let's buy it first so we don't forget our money situation here. Now if this Soyuz is going straight from Earth to Earth orbit, that's a difficulty 8 and it's a mass of 9. Well, I don't know why I'm doing this in my head. This is right here on our space agency card. A difficulty 8. A Soyuz can take a payload of 1. We do have an ion thruster we could toss up there, or we have supplies or Juno rockets. I need a Juno rocket for my moon mission, so I'm going to just throw that payload of 1 in that spacecraft. It's also Juno is really cheap. If I lose it because the Soyuz blows up, I'd rather lose a $1 million Juno rocket than a $10 million ion thruster. So let's test that Soyuz rocket. Look at that, major failure. There's still a couple failures left in this deck. So that Soyuz explodes on the pad, takes the Juno rocket with it. It's 5 million to discard that major failure. We have 12 million left. I'm going to buy another ion thruster because I'm thinking we're going to need a lot of those when we send our scientists out to Jupiter. And 2 million left. We'll pick up 2 more supplies, and that's the end of 1976. So 1977, I've removed my time token off my spacecraft. Our spacecraft is at Jupiter flyby location. We can survey Jupiter from here, but if we do, our ship is lost. See, the new rule on surveying is you can only survey once per turn. So if I survey Jupiter, at the end of our turn, since there's no time tokens on that craft, it would be lost, and you wouldn't get it, more time basically at the Jupiter flyby location to complete a second survey. Let's survey Jupiter. We flip the card over. It has a radiation level of 1 for astronauts, and I want to say spacecraft, I think. I'm not sure what that iconography means. It's just astronauts. You roll a die per astronaut, and on a 1, they are sick. That's not too bad. The Greek letter on here is beta. So what we're going to do is look at the mission cards for Jupiter that have a beta symbol on them. So there's 1, 2, and one that has both alpha and beta on it. I don't believe we play with this one because there's not an alpha and a beta on the Jupiter location. I'm going to take a quick look at the Jupiter cards I didn't use. One's got only an alpha, and one's got only a beta. So there are no Jupiter cards that have the alpha and the beta. So I guess we use all 3. If we had the, yeah, it's like a subset and a superset. So in this case, all 3 have the beta, but if the Jupiter card revealed only had the alpha, we would not use these 2 that have the beta only on them. Let's pick one of these guys at random with a die. So this is the mission we revealed. A man on or orbiting Jupiter or one of its moons at the start of the year. That's 25 points. That's pretty significant. So we did reveal the Jupiter location. We got 5 points. We're up to 9, but we put another 25 on the board. It's too late because I've already done it. But I could have tried to aero brake to get into Jupiter orbit and survey Jupiter from Jupiter orbit instead of Jupiter flyby. That would have let me test aero braking, but it would have been at a risk to my craft, and then I would have not known what was going on at Jupiter. I don't really know what the right decision there would have been. I feel like knowing what we're going up against earlier is better than, I don't think we're going to fully test aero braking. I think it's too late in the game. But at the end of that turn, this craft is lost because of the automatic maneuver. So we lose our Galileo probe, but we learn a little bit about Jupiter, and we reveal a mission location. When we think about what we need to send up, we don't need to send another Galileo or the Explorer probe. We can pull those off. I think I still am liking the Apollo with the 2 astronaut or the 2 medics, and we don't need a scientist there anymore. I'm tempted to send another medic. I think I will. So I'm going to spend another $5 million on another medic astronaut. This time let's take Michael Collins. And let's buy another Soyuz. Soyuz costs 8 million. And let's send up another Juno. We still have our 2 outcome cards here from last time from the Soyuz. Oh, another major failure. You cannot believe my bad luck on this game. I've never seen this many failures. So again, the Soyuz explodes. We lose the Juno. We pay 5 million to remove the major failure. We only have one outcome left. Gosh dang it. And we have $7 million, and the Soyuz is 8. I always feel like I'm 1 million short and a day late, or a year late, probably, in the case of this game. It's very tight. Of course, I didn't need to buy that other medic astronaut just yet. I should probably buy astronauts at the end of my turn and not the beginning of my turn. The problem is if we buy the Soyuz and launch it and it blows up, we're still not going to have enough money to remove failure. So we're fine. What can we do for 7 million? Let's buy 2 Juno rockets since we blew up 2. That's going to be 2 million. And let's buy another Atlas rocket for 5 million. I'm going to kind of stockpile some of these smaller rockets because I know we're going to need them. Okay, 1978. It is getting a little close to where we need to start doing more things. I'm a little concerned about how many atlases it's going to take to do this. We know we need Soyuzes and we know we need to get everything up there and boosted, and I'm looking at the times here. We have a couple more windows where Jupiter flyby is going to line up, but not many. So let's start building our delivery here. We know we're going to need another stage to the Saturn. We're going to have a 2-stage Saturn rocket. So that's $15 million. I'm going to just start to lay this out. So our first stage of the Saturn is going to go from Earth to suborbital flight. It's a difficulty 3 maneuver, and that Saturn can take a payload of 46. Of course, the second stage of the Saturn is 20 mass again, which leaves us an effective payload of about 26. And when the second stage ignites from suborbital flight, if it's a difficulty of 5, that Saturn can carry 20. We know we're going to have our Apollo capsule with our 3 medics in it, and we know they are going to take at least 3 years to get there, so they need to bring at least 3 supplies. We're not bringing any mechanics, so we don't need any additional supplies. Now, this just gets them into Earth orbit. From Earth orbit, we need ion thrusters. We've got 2. I think I'd like to bring 2 more. And they're 10 million each, so I'm going to buy another ion thruster, and we'll call that the end of 1978. Okay, it's 1979, and I said in 1980 we needed to launch our Ceres mission if we want to have enough time. Actually, we needed to start it in 1980. 3 years to collect the money, and then 4 years to travel. So we're okay. We're on track. Gosh, I hope we're on track. I hope I planned it out right on paper. We've only got 8 of our 20 payload, so we can bring some of the things that are required for the Ceres mission, but we've only got 12 mass. A Soyuz rocket is 9. That might be helpful to get one of those boosted. 9. Then again, the math strikes. Because if we bring a Soyuz, we've got a mass of 3 left, and we would need we need Atlases up there, which have a mass of 4. I can't tell you how blown away I am by the number of different problems that the game creates for you, where you just need one more mass, or one more thrust, or one more $1 million, or one more supply. It's amazing. The other thing we need to think about is the amount of supplies we're taking. Ultimately, our ship is going to have a mass of 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8. So 2 more ion thrusters would give it a mass of 10. It would produce 20 thrust. So 1-year maneuvers are going to take 2. And it's going to take us 2 to get to interplanetary transfer. And then 2 to Venus. And then 2 to Jupiter flyby. So that we actually need to double our supplies. We need to bring 6 supplies. And now the mass of the ship's gone up considerably. It's at 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 with 4 ion thrusters. 15 times 3 is 45. Now things are going to take 3 years. So what if we could have 5 thrusters? 14 times 3. So 3 and 6 is 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That would be 6 ion thrusters, which is a 30. Yeah, we can do it. Okay, so the goal here is 6 ion thrusters. If I get 2, that is going to, let's see if we can make up the difference. Let's see if we can not do series by doing our Jupiter mission. So the original, I think it was 72. Okay, so the original game we needed, there were 74 mission points available. You divide that by 2 and get 37, and add 1, 38 for our victory. Now the question is can we afford to not go to series, which is going to put 22 mission points back on the board, and pick up the Jupiter station for 25. Okay, so we're going to need, with the Jupiter station revealed here, we need 49 and a half. We basically need 50 points to win. We have 9. So if we pick up the Jupiter survey and the lunar sample return, we're at 44. So we need 6 more points. A series lander will get us there. We don't need to do the series sample return, which is going to save us a couple of years and save us some money in rockets. So I think that is our plan. These are the missions we're going to focus on in order to win this game. We need ion thrusters. We need 2 more of them. We need a lot of ion thrusters. We've got 4. We need 2 more. We still have $5 million. What shall we buy? How about an Atlas and a Juno? And that's the end of 1979. It's 1980, and I'm getting a little nervous. We've got 6 years to accomplish quite a bit. I need to launch this year if I'm going to get these guys where they're going. And I haven't exactly planned it out. Again, I'm kind of winging it because I wasn't planning on this approach. Let's buy 2 more ion thrusters. Let's check the mass of this mission here. 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. We are good for the first stage. The first stage is a single Saturn rocket with a difficulty of 3. It can carry a mass of 46, and it's got 23, 29, 35. We're good to go. The second stage is going to have a mass of 15. Saturn at a difficulty of 5 can do 20. So we're good to go on there. We can actually take a mass of 5 more. So we can get an Atlas and a Juno up there as well. So these are going with us as an alternate payload to be disconnected with a rendezvous check in Earth orbit and used for our Ceres mission, or Moon, either. This will be a little anticlimactic because a lot of this is tested. When they get out to Jupiter, it'll get exciting. Saturn rocket advancement's fully tested. First stage burns. We discard it. And we're in suborbital flight for the first time with astronauts. So we flip it over and check it out. And thank goodness there are no effects. Sometimes you'd have to roll to see if the astronauts are incapacitated, and sometimes that roll is easy, and sometimes it's a little harder. Second stage of the Saturn is going to be a successful burn and move us to Earth orbit. Our rendezvous advancement is fully tested, so we're going to undock the Atlas and Juno, and I'm going to just dock these, which is another rendezvous check, which is another automatic success, with the capsule token, which is kind of our supply depot on Earth orbit. And now, what is our mass? 3, well, 12, 13, 14, 15. We have a mass of 15, and to go from Earth orbit to interplanetary transfer is a difficulty 3. We're going to need 45 thrust, and there's no radiation check yet. So 45 thrust, we're producing 30 thrust with all 6 of our ion thrusters combined. Ion thrusters are also fully tested, so that is going to take us 2 years to get to interplanetary transfer. Now, in 2 years, it'll be 1982. It'll be a slingshot year for Jupiter, but we will not be there yet. We will be on our way to Venus flyby. We'll be 2 supplies lighter for the 2 years we're out there. It'll be 6, 10, it'll be 13 times 2 is 26. We'll have enough to get there in 1 year, which is not a slingshot year, so we're going to have to take an extra long year to get there in 84 when we can fly out there. There's a lot of life support checks that are going to happen here that I sure hope we make it. I'm getting nervous. We've got 5 million. I really don't think there's really anything else we can spend that money on that we need, but I'm not going to waste it, so I'm going to buy another Atlas. And that's the end of the year. So we're going to remove a time token, and we got to check life support. I'm a little nervous on this, the way this game's been going. A mechanic. A mechanic could have bumped up a minor failure to a success. We probably should have brought a mechanic instead of 3 medics, because the occupants are all going to die if I don't get a success. Oh, it's a success. I don't have any money to remove that success, and I'm not sure I want to, because I know I have at least a 33% chance of my life support working. I gotta hope those other cards are success cards too. I'm gonna shuffle them up and put them back. Let me forget where they were, but I'm gonna always roll a die to pick, so it's not like I can really game it. So we're gonna spend a supply for their first year, and we took a time token off already, so we're good. Okay, it's 1981. We have about 6 years left to get this to work here. I know I'm going to need a couple of Saturn rockets to get these last smaller rockets into Earth orbit to complete the Ceres probe and the lunar sample return. So I'm going to spend 15 million on the first stage of the Saturn. I have 10 million to save to try to decide if I want to discard perhaps the one and only success in my life support. I'll tell you what, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the success in there, and if I get a failure, I'll have the money to discard it. If all the occupants die, I can still move the craft. We could try to bring it back to Earth orbit and pick up a new crew, but at that penalty for losing 3 astronauts may tip the game back to a loss. So let's see what happens. We're going to remove the time token. It's the end of 1981. I rolled a 1. Oh my gosh! Another major failure. That's bad news. So let's just deal with it. 5 million off. The occupants die. Now, they are technically still in the Apollo craft, but we're going to remove them and put them under our agency card so that we know that we've lost them. Thematically, we're going to assume that NASA can remote control the craft, and we're just going to turn around and come back. Well, we got 3, well, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Mass of 14. Mass of 14 times 3 is 42. We have 30 ion thrust a year. It's going to take 2 years. I don't know if this is going to work. And we're going back to Earth orbit. I'm going to need astronauts. So we'll use that last 5 million on another medic. Let's get time token off. And we're in 1982. If I don't leave next year for Ceres, I will not get there in time. We've got one to enter, well, could do it in 2 years, but I think I was looking at an ion thruster and I need a probe. I don't even have a probe. So if we spent 15 million on a Saturn to get our second stage of the Saturn and 10 million on the single ion thruster to boost it, we still lack 2 million for a probe. Oh, we have a probe, but it's in lunar orbit. got to get that lunar sample return done. This is going to be really tight because I also need another capsule to get those astronauts up there. Now, we don't need to worry about re-entry. We could do an Eagle, which is cheap. It's got 2 seats, maybe a mechanic. I don't have enough money. Let's buy that other Saturn. And next year is the make or break year for this. We need Soyuzes up there too. Man, we just do not have enough money. Let me go back to the mission planning card. My original series mission included bringing rockets to get back. So this is a good example of using the mission planning card. So we're going to work backwards from Ceres. We know we need to get onto the surface of Ceres, which is a mass of 1, which means a difficulty 5 maneuver, a mass of 1, an Atlas rocket can do that, of which we have many. Now the Atlas rocket itself has a mass of 4, so we're going to add that to the payload of the previous stage. 4 plus 1 is 5. That is going to be a difficulty 3 maneuver. A difficulty 3 maneuver with a mass of 5. An Atlas can also do that. This is looking okay so far. So we need to get 2 Atlases and a probe into Earth orbit. We have 2 Atlases right here. We don't have the probe. And the reason I was checking was because I thought maybe we ought to buy a Soyuz with this 10 million. I don't think we need the Soyuz rockets. I don't think we needed to waste our time testing them. And that may have cost me the game. Let's buy a probe for $2 million. And that is what we need to boost to take care of the Ceres lander. And that's not a lot of mass, so there's going to be room on the spacecraft. The other thing we need to get on there is some seats for our astronauts. We're going to put an Eagle capsule on there for 4. Are there cheaper rides for them? Not really. I want to try to conserve mass. So an Eagle capsule is going to cost 4 million. We know Andrian is going to ride in it. I think I gotta buy a mechanic astronaut. Oh no, I only have $4 million, not 5. Okay, that's all right. It's not even enough for an Atlas. It is enough for some supplies. We'll buy 4 supplies. And we take a time token off. Our Jupiter craft is back in Earth orbit. Yikes. No, we're not going to be able to do this because in 1983, which is going to be next year, we've only got 4 years till the end of the game. Let's see what we can do. I think we've lost it, unfortunately. So 1983. Okay, why did I not launch in 1982? Let's back up. Let's put this money back for a minute. I have 2 Saturns sitting here, and it's 1982. I'm still going to probably be 1 year short. And if I launch this now, I wanted a mechanic. I'm not going to have the luxury of taking a mechanic. I just don't have it. Another pilot doesn't do me any favors. We're just going to go with this. First stage Saturn, second stage Saturn. We have our Ceres mission, which I'm going to put upside down to differentiate it. We have the Eagle with our... It doesn't make sense to send a single medic up because if they fail the radiation check, there's no one to heal. We still need a person there. We're going to send John Glenn with him. He's going to be there to keep John Glenn alive. Let's look at the lunar sample return for a minute. That's going to require a Juno rocket. There's already one up there, but then we have an Atlas that's already waiting in Earth orbit. So those are covered. To deliver the Juno, it's going to take 2 Atlases in the Juno. These aren't quite really helping me here, so lunar sample return. We need a single Juno to get off the surface of the moon. It's going to rendezvous with an Atlas that's waiting in Earth orbit, and then it's going to come home. So the Atlas that's in Earth orbit is going to stay there. We need to get the Juno that's in Earth orbit down to the moon, and from the moon it's got to get down. So 2 times 2 is 4, so we're going to need a Juno and another Atlas. So these will go sideways. That's our lunar sample return rockets we need. And what's our mass looking like? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We can bring another 5 mass. More supplies. We've already got 5 up there. We can send an Atlas just in case. It's just a backup Atlas. So let's burn this at the end of 1982. Both Saturns fire. Everything is in Earth orbit. The Eagle is going to rendezvous with this ship, and then they're going to get into the Apollo capsule, and the Eagle is going to separate, and we might as well dock it with our space junk floating around up here. We need to bring on another supply, potentially. So what we need to figure out is, can we get there faster? It's 1982. Interplanetary transfer. If we go now, take it off at the end of 82, we'll be at interplanetary transfer in 83, 1 year to Venus. We can do it. We can do it. Okay. We got to make sure it's only 3 years. So we're going to chuck 3 supplies back off of here. I wish I had more ones. I've only got 4 left. Let's put all of these into our supply station, and we're only going to bring 3. 3 is going to do it, I sure hope. A mass of 3 is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we have a mass of 12 for our spacecraft. Goes to interplanetary transfer. It's 36 thrust, and we only have 30. Dang, that 1 year maneuver is going to take 2 years. There's not a way around it. Or we could shed 2 thrust here, or 2 mass. Now we have a mass of 10, but that's 30, and we only do 20. This is so tough. That extra Atlas might be the trick here. I'm going to come back to this puzzle on the Juno rocket just for a minute, because I want to get our other ships going. And I'm just going to put them on the board because they're small. So I have 2 Atlases and a probe in Earth orbit right here. That's 9. 9 times 3 is 27, which is the mass or the thrust that the Atlas can produce. It's fully tested. So that's going to move this to interplanetary transfer and put 1 time token on it. So that is our Ceres lander. That's taken care of. Now I'm going to dock this Juno with this Atlas and Juno. 4, 5, 6 times 3 is 18. And when that goes to lunar orbit, I've got the 2 Junos, and then that will push it down, and that will push it back up. I need to get another, so 4, 5, 6, 10 at a difficulty 3. It can't do it anyway. Oh, I have an Atlas in lunar orbit already, so we're good to go. I was trying to figure out how to not use this. So an Atlas and 2 Junos is going to make another spacecraft in Earth orbit with a mass of 6. Going to lunar orbit with a difficulty of 3 requires 18 thrust. I have 27. I discard the Atlas. The 2 Junos are now in lunar orbit, where they will rendezvous with the probe. Did I mess that up again? I think I did. I should have brought more Junos instead of that Atlas. I'm going to fire these now and solve these problems later because I have too many problems in my head right now. I'm going to have a Juno floating in Earth orbit with the Atlas, and then I'm going to have a mass of 2, a Juno and a probe right here. 2 times 2 is 4. The Juno fires, and I have to check landing to try to get my probe on the surface of the moon. Success. Now that I have a probe on the surface of the moon, I can get a moon sample. And now what I need is another Juno in lunar orbit to push a Juno down, and then have the single Juno push that single sample up, rendezvous with the Atlas, get to Earth orbit, and get down. I need one Juno in lunar orbit, which means I need an Atlas and a Juno to go up on a single Saturn. I'm going to need to buy that other Atlas and the Saturn later. So back to this problem at hand. Can firing this extra Atlas give me that little bit of extra thrust I need to kick those ions into interplanetary transfer in 1 year instead of 2? So I have 6 mass of thrusters, 3 supplies, 3 for the capsule is 12. If I add the mass of the Atlas, that's 16. 16 times 3 is 48. Minus 30 for the ions is 18. Yes! The 27 thrust from the Atlas will do it. Let's see how this works. All 6 ion thrusters fire. And we give it a kick with the Atlas because we needed an extra 18 thrust for the additional 4 mass. Provides 27. We go with this to interplanetary transfer with only 1 time token on it instead of 2 by sacrificing one of the Atlases from the lunar sample return mission to get the astronauts to Jupiter before the end of the game. Oh, it's pretty exciting when you solve these puzzles like this. It's very exciting. We still have a lot of obstacles to overcome, but we're due some good luck with all of the failures have been drawn. It's the end of 1982. We need to remove the time token from our probe headed to Ceres. We need to remove the time token from our craft with our Jupiter astronauts headed to interplanetary transfer. And we need to test life support, which we now have a 50-50 outcome. I was not able, oh man, this would be guaranteed if I was able to bring a mechanic instead of a pilot. The reason being, well, it wouldn't be guaranteed. A major failure would still kill everybody, but a minor failure would be improved to a success. We already know one of the cards is a success. So we would have, I don't know the probability distribution of the outcome cards. I purposefully not looked. I haven't counted. I don't want to know. I just feel like it's kind of cheating a little bit. I have a feel after playing the game several times that there are more successes than failures, although you wouldn't know it from this one anecdotal game. I'm nervous to check even. Let's check life support for these guys. It's a 5. It's a success. Now the problem is I don't know which success card I'm looking at. Is this the one I've seen or a different one? We don't know. But this year they survived. We consume a supply. And now we go to 1983. This is going to be very tight. 1983 is here with our $25 million. I'm feeling a little more upbeat and optimistic about this game finally. It's going to be really close. 1983, we have some automatic maneuvers we need to do. We have our astronauts going to Jupiter. Now they're at interplanetary transfer in 1983. They need to go to the Venus flyby spot, which takes 1 time token and has a radiation check. So for radiation level of 2, we need to roll a die per astronaut, and it's 2 times the time. If you roll 2 times the time or less, they're sick. So we have 1 time token and the radiation level is 2. We need to roll a 2. Actually, we need to roll a 3 or higher on an 8-sided dice. Pretty good odds. Well, the other thing we need to do is say which astronaut we're rolling for. Let's try to get lucky with John Glenn. John Glenn's the guy we need to keep alive. Let's give him the first roll. Oh my goodness, it's a 3. I rolled the lowest number possible for him to survive. So John Glenn survives. Let's check for our medic. Get a good bounce out of that thing, and I got a 5. So they both survived the radiation check going to the Venus flyby. Feel like it's turning here a little bit for us. The next craft we have to move or lose is our probe to Ceres. It has a mass of 5. It's a difficulty 5 maneuver, so it is going to Ceres. Now we can explore, we can survey Ceres, but this is where that, if a craft ends its turn on that location, it's lost. I feel like if it should be the end of the year, because if we survey from this location, we're going to lose the craft. We're going to just move there instead. And I also kind of have a question of, you take as many turns as you want. My first turn was moving my Jupiter astronauts. So at the end of my turn, was this Ceres probe actually lost? It doesn't feel right. It feels like you could manage moving 2 craft at the same time in the same year. So I wonder if that's just, I don't quite feel like I have a great handle on that rule. I feel like I understand the intent of it, that you can't stay there multiple years, but I just don't know about multiple turns. So we're just gonna zip into landing on Ceres. Landing is not optional. Yikes, I hadn't thought about this either. Our landing has 3 unknown outcome cards on it. So we really need to pull a success on this if we want to have any chance of winning the game. We need to start getting some of these missions knocked out. That's a 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, it's a success. So my Atlas rocket's discarded to produce the thrust to get the probe to Ceres. It lands on Ceres, and there's plentiful water, ice, and supplies available on Ceres. Now we are not, unfortunately, going to be bringing any supplies back, but we did accomplish the Ceres lander achievement for 8 points. We still have our $25 million too. We're not going to be spending a lot of money, actually. All right, let's put the landing outcomes away. Shuffle them up a bit and forget what's where. All right, we need to look at getting that lunar sample back. We know that is going to be a Saturn rocket, which is 15 million. And we know we need an Atlas rocket, which is 5. And we're going to go for the difficulty 8 maneuver. We're going to throw another Juno on there. A Saturn rocket at difficulty of 8 can only carry a payload of 5, which is the Atlas and the Juno. We're going to fire that Saturn to put the Atlas and the Juno in Earth orbit. Now we have a mass of 5 and a difficulty of 3 to go from Earth orbit to lunar orbit. That gets our Juno rocket in lunar orbit, where it will rendezvous with the Juno and Atlas that are already there. And then the 2 Junos are going to undock. And now I have 2 spacecraft in lunar orbit. I'm not representing them with tokens because they're just transiting through there. 2 Juno rockets make a mass of 2, 2 times the difficulty of 2 to get to the moon is 4. A single Juno produces 4 thrust. I discard 1 Juno, and I have a single Juno on the surface of the moon where I can rendezvous or hook up with the moon sample, leaving the probe behind on the surface of the moon. Now I have another rocket, which we'll use this token for, mass of 2, difficulty of 2, to go from lunar orbit, from the moon up to lunar orbit, discarding the Juno. In lunar orbit, the moon sample will rendezvous with the waiting Atlas, which is right here. We can get that token back now. Actually, let's leave that token there. And what I'll do is we'll just put this probe crashed on the moon and take this token back. And that's easier than shuffling everything around. Now the Atlas and the moon sample have a mass of 5. 5 times 3 is 15. We discard the Atlas for 27 thrust. That pushes our moon sample to Earth orbit. And from Earth, it's a mass of 1 to fall that lunar sample from Earth, orbit back to Earth. Landing is optional, but re-entry is not. So we have another nail biter outcome here with the re-entry of the lunar sample return. I rolled a 1. Oh, it's a success. Now I've only got 5 million. I'm kind of tempted to leave the successes in at this point. That way I know I have at least a 33% chance of re-entry working if I have to do something in Jupiter orbit. So our lunar sample falls back to Earth. Re-entry is successful. We have a lunar sample on Earth, and we can collect the lunar sample return mission for 10. So to recap, 18, 22, and 5. We have 27 mission points. We need 50. Yep, 27 and 25. If we can do the Jupiter station, we are all set. It's the end of the year. We take a time token off our Jupiter craft, which will be arriving at the Venus flyby at the start of next year. Oh no. We are going to get to Jupiter with not enough supplies. So we're going to consume a supply in 1983, and when we go to Jupiter, we'll need to consume a supply in 1984. We will arrive in Jupiter orbit in 1985 and need to spend the year there, for which we have no supplies. And this is kind of a bit of a cheat, but the game is going to end the next year in 1986. So if we brought 2 more supplies with us, we could have lived our 2 years out in Jupiter orbit and assume that they either resupply us or we go somewhere where there are supplies or we do something else. Now supplies are available at Ceres, but we're already at Venus flyby. So there's nowhere else to go from there really. Let me do the math. I know we had the supplies available because I needed 18 thrust from the Saturn that provided 27. So what would 2 more supplies have added? Which we had in orbit, in Earth orbit. I just didn't bring them. So 3 for the capsule, 3 for the supplies, 2 more for the supplies we didn't bring, 6 for the ion thrusters, and 4 for the Atlas we used is 18 times 3 is 54. We were producing 30 thrust with the ions, 27, 57. We had the mass to bring them, and I didn't. So now I've lost because I'm no longer in Earth orbit and those supplies are not with me. Is there a way? Well, let me finish this out first before I get too lost and confused here. Let's check the life support. Life support's a success. They consume a supply. And now the question is can we've got 7 supplies in Earth orbit. We need to get them in a year, the Venus flyby. We've only got to get 2 of them there. So a 6 mass times 3 is only 18. The Atlas is an automatic success. We can rendezvous the Atlas and the 2 supplies we have in Earth orbit at our supply depot. Fire the Atlas to push these 2 supplies to Venus flyby, which is going to be here with a time token, single time token. It's the end of the year. We remove that time token. The 2 supplies arrive at the same time at the Venus flyby location as our astronauts next year in 1984. This is gonna work. Lose $5 million. So it's 1984. We're starting with 25 million. We have our 2 supplies. We're gonna rendezvous with our Jupiter astronauts at Venus flyby location, and then our ship we're going to go to, it's a Jupiter flyby year. We're going to go to the Jupiter flyby location. That takes 1 time token, and it's a radiation check again. So we're going to check John Glenn first. We need at least a 3 on the 8-sided dice. Oh my gosh, we're cutting this so close. I rolled a 3 again. Now let's check for our medic. A 1. The medic is incapacitated, which is unfortunate because it's another 2 negative points for the end of the game. And it's a medic that can't heal John Glenn anymore should he run into trouble at Jupiter. My gosh, what next? I don't think there's anything left to do. We have 3 years, and I just don't think there's no way we can get that. There's just not a way to get that probe back, I don't think, from series, and I'm not sure we need to. Although with all this money sitting around, I'm tempted to try. But the problem is that we can only get one stage of the Saturn this year. Next year we could buy the other in 1985, boost it through interplanetary transfer. We wouldn't even get to series before the game would be over. So this 25 million, I don't really think I need it. I'm going to wish I'd spent it on something. I can't see what we should spend it on at this point. So what we need to do is remove the time token from our ship and test life support. Success. I'm starting to feel a little more confident on the life support here. John Glenn eats a supply, and that's the end of 1984. So 1985 begins with our $25 million again, and we are at the Jupiter flyby. We are going to try to insert into Jupiter orbit, which means we have to check the Jupiter hazard and then the aerobrake hazard, and then we have a difficulty 3 maneuver. So the Jupiter hazard is you roll a die per astronaut, and on a roll of a 1, they're incapacitated. We just rolled a 1, let's not roll another. A 7. So we've passed the Jupiter hazard for John Glenn. John Glenn is in our Jupiter flyby location. We've already rolled for the Jupiter hazard, which is a 1. And now as I look at trying to aerobrake, I see that there's no optional time token on it, which means we can't use our ion thrusters for that maneuver, and I don't have any chemical rockets. So I have to do the difficulty 10 maneuver. And our current mass of our ship is 6 for the ion thrusters, 2 for the supplies, 3 for the Apollo, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 times 10. Oh my goodness. That can't be right, can it? That can't be right. Yep. We need 110 thrust. I just kind of hope we can just shoot into the thick atmosphere of Jupiter and slow down. Darn it. There's just no way to get these guys there. And we didn't bring anything else with us. We don't even have a probe, so we can't survey. We can't land anywhere. And it's not a Saturn flyby year. I just missed that detail, and I wasn't looking carefully enough at how aerobraking worked. It's the first time I'm playing the game, and I didn't realize that to aerobrake you needed thrust. Darn, I was so excited. I thought for sure I had it figured out. I'm pretty sure with all the astronauts that I killed, I lost anyway. But it's really disappointing to get this close and not be able to claim that last 25 points there. For the way it would have worked basically is the aerobrake was a success, even though we can't do it. So we would be in Jupiter orbit. We would have to pass a life support check at the end of this year. It's a success. That would eat up a supply and put us in 1986. And then the last year, we have a man, read this here, man on or orbiting Jupiter or one of its moons at the start of the year. So at the start of the year, we could claim this. We still have a supply that would feed him through the end of the game, so we don't take the penalty for killing him. We'd have to check, and it's a success. So at that point, had we been able to fire some kind of chemical thruster to get the difficulty, we could have undocked from all of our ions and brought one supply, we would have a mass of 4. 4 times 3 is 12. A Atlas rocket could have done it, but we didn't bring one. Just hypothetically looking at that there, if we would have scored that last mission point. Let's see if we could have won had we planned better, in spite of the astronaut loss. Missions, we have 25 plus 5 plus 4 plus 8 plus 10 is 52 minus 2, 4, 6, 8 is 44. Yeah. So even if we fudge and say that we could have claimed the Jupiter station, which we could not have, we still would have lost because of all the astronauts I killed not getting there. So I was really hoping I was going to be able to win this game for you guys. There's details that you really got to pay attention to, and I didn't. Of course, the game will get easier as you play it more. We'll know next time a lot of the details involved. Some of these newer advancements, like arrow braking, have another requirement, the reentry. We know that we got to burn chemical rockets sometimes. We know we want to bring some extra components with us if we're going to do rendezvous in case they're damaged. We can damage some components that aren't critical to the mission. Maybe bring some extra supplies. Maybe have some backup plans. Maybe try to more fully test some of our more expensive rockets with cheaper payloads. We had quite a few setbacks this game. And I do think an inordinate amount of failure outcomes. We can look at the life support now that we're done. They're both successes. That's nice. Arrow braking, another major failure in there, 2 successes. The last Soyuz was a major failure. Re-entry was all successes, which is nice. And the landings were all successes. So just kind of looking at the gotchas there, we had a pretty good chance of arrow braking working. Our last Soyuz would have blown up and slowed us down again. Awfully fun game. I really enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed watching me stumble through it. It's just such a fantastic game. You really get those highs and lows when you're drawing those outcome cards and your best plans. I sat down and planned things out on paper. They still didn't really quite work out the way I thought they would or wanted to. I thought I'd get that Soyuz sample returned back, and at the end there, just wasn't going to work. I also thought I was going to Enceladus and bringing a grab bag of scientists and probes and explorer packages and hoping to get lucky on whatever mission card I revealed. Felt like I better if I reveal Jupiter, draw a Jupiter card and see what happens there. Solar radiation, again, was a gamble. Whether to bring medics and mechanics, there's just a lot of choices in the game, and it's a lot of fun. And the math is not that bad. It's addition, subtraction, multiplication, and and obviously, if you wanted to use some more advanced math like probability theory, that might improve your odds of winning the game here. I love the game. I'm really happy I'm able to share it with you. I'm very grateful to Joe Fatula for being able to produce it and for Luminaris for publishing it. All the fans on Board Game Geek that share our enthusiasm for this game and help answer rules questions. The more I play it, the more I feel like there's layers of strategy that are revealing themselves as you get a better understanding of the game and maybe call into question your understanding of the rules a little bit. It's just a fantastic game. I hope that my videos have either helped you learn how to play better or brought you some enjoyment watching me stumble through it, or hopefully convince you to buy it. It's a fantastic game. And if you're thinking about it, I can't recommend it enough. I absolutely love the game. So thanks a lot for watching, everybody, and I hope you guys have a lot of fun and success with the game.